Hi. So where are you?
I am in a tiny little room at Cinco Puntos main headquarters in El Paso, Texas.
Yeah. I
And
could tell it wasn't Maine because there's a lime green and a yellow um, wall there, and it looks like a lady with the Mexican flag. Ooh, and red.
and then
Nice.
the ceiling is orange. See
Nice.
that? Can you see?
Well,
Wait,
not really, just the light, but yes.
you can sort of see, but yes,
Yep.
El Paso.
Great.
So anyway, it's good to see you. We decided to call this Raw and Real after last
Right.
week's mishaps.
I have plugged the kids into their drug of choice for this moment, but that doesn't mean there won't be any interruptions.
What's their drug of choice?
Well, Bob the Builder, and then the girls get to pick something out. So it'll probably be Word Girl, but I don't know that for sure. So we'll see.
Well,
the parenting choices we make, huh?
yes. Well, it's just for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they'll live.
Yes. Yes, they will.
So anyway, I think you were going to ask me a question this
Right.
week. Last week I asked you about Mexican food, and I have to tell you, by the way, just as an aside,
Yeah.
I just had the best tortilla soup that exists on the face of this planet. Maya Pan in El Paso makes it, and it just has this incredible flavor. I've loved it. They first opened up like 15 years ago, and then it was the best tortilla soup I've ever had, and it still is. So I just had it, and I don't know, the flavor is astronomical. They use chipotle.
Yeah.
But chipotle usually has a real smoky flavor, and this doesn't. Anyway, I just had to say.
Well,
Really
good. Good.
So.
Sounds delicious. Well, my question for the day is a little bit more on the heavy side than last week, but still, it is how do your views or how you think about death affect maybe how you live, either consciously or subconsciously, now that you're thinking about it?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer.
And some background for this. I mean, if you haven't read the book, obviously this book has a lot to do with death, since it's about different psychopomps and how they
our book,
right? Broken Circle,
yeah.
Yes, Broken Circle, and so we've been writing about death, but I'm not sure how much. And we've had some conversations like this, but not quite so formal. And by the way, I'm doing this also partly because we will be at Allen this weekend, and this coming weekend, and there'll be a symposium that we will be talking about that deals with grief, I believe, right?
Yes.
And and there's many different ways you can come at grief, and one of them, of course, is death, which we will be talking about. And then I have a very quick 10 hours in Miami on a panel at the Miami Book Fair, and that will also supposedly deal with death. So this will get my mind onto the topic at hand. So again, let me restate that. How do your views of death affect how you live, basically, in a nutshell?
So, I mean, me specifically, I like, to be honest, when you say, what are your views on death? I'm not sure. I feel really agnostic about that. We grew up in an evangelical Christian household, so we were taught at the youngest age possible that the choices we make here on earth affect our souls for eternity. And it wasn't about whether you stole that candy or not, but it was about, whether you accepted the truth of the Christian faith, and whether you accepted it or not meant that you would either go to heaven or hell. And I mean, I could get more specific on that, but the point is as an adult, I found myself really questioning that belief structure and finding that it didn't hold up for me in the long term. And it wasn't how I wanted to live my life. I didn't want to live my life running around. I mean, it was almost sort of selfish. It was kind of like, well, even if this is true, I just don't like living my life where everyone I meet, I have to like help them figure out whether they're going to heaven or hell. And it just made me feel all uck. And so maybe it was sort of selfish, but that was part of what kind of caused me to think, this whole belief system isn't holding up for me. And so I kind of left that belief system behind, and, have in the ensuing years have kind of waited around in this vague, structureless notion that I don't really know what happens after we die. I don't know, that there's a heaven or hell. I don't know if when we die, whether we just exist, is the soul a real thing? I just don't know anymore. And it's not that I think that there's no answers out there. There might be. I just haven't found them yet. And so I guess I've come to kind of some vague conclusions that maybe I should just try and, live life as best as I possibly can at making this world a better place. And I suppose that was influenced to some degree by my Christian upbringing, in that, you were supposed to try and really work hard for justice and mercy here on earth. And so, that probably comes directly out of that influence. But I guess I do feel that if we have one life to live, then we should really try and make it count. And, some people take the attitude of, you have one life to live, so therefore you should, do, live it very selfishly in a way. Like you should, do everything you can, make as much money as you can, enjoy every moment in that kind of materialistic sort of way of attacking life. And that just doesn't work for me. So, but I do feel like if, since I don't really know, I want to make this life count. And for me, that means thinking about ways that my presence in the world can, make people's lives better. Mm-hmm. And so I write the books that I write in an attempt to make the world a better place. I publish the books that I publish because I also work as a publisher. I publish the books that I publish in order to try and make the world a better place. And I try and live in the world in that way. And I try and teach my son that way. We work in an organic garden that feeds a food pantry, that all that organic produce goes into this food pantry. And, I'm trying to teach him to think about, how, consciously making choices to make the world a better place. And I guess that's how I've chosen, maybe we're reincarnated, or maybe we do go on from here to some other world, or our souls do go on to some other type of, world. But since I don't know, and there's no proof of that, I'm just trying to make my life count here. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think my hang up with it, since I don't know, and I think it has to do more with, I think I would be more, me personally, would be more apt to feel okay about death the more I felt okay about my life. Not that I don't feel okay about it, but just I think they go hand in hand. You begin to reconcile yourself to there's an end of life when you are content with what you've done in life and where you're at, or at least where you're at. And I feel, I think it's easy as a stay-at-home dad who spends most of my time doing the same thing over and over and over and over again every day, and it's not like there's an end to it. It's just like this cycle, and feeling like is this, I haven't found what I'm looking for. And so it frightens me. Death frightens me, not because it never really used to frighten me, but it frightens me more and more, not just because I feel like I haven't found what it is, that thing, whatever that thing is in your life. But I think they go hand in hand. I think also realizing and maybe, reconciling myself to death is also reconciling yourself to life, like the life that you live, because you don't always have choice in this life. We like to pretend that we do, but we don't. And just like we don't have a choice when we die, we think we do. And we feel strongly that if you make this choice that you're going to live, if you don't smoke and you don't do these things, and you're going to live longer, which there's a propensity for that, but there's no guarantee. And when it comes to the odds of life, somebody's got to live short, and it could be you, it could be me, it could be tomorrow. And so reconciling that uncertainty, for me, I think goes a long way with reconciling myself to the hand that's dealt you, in a way. Not that I have nothing, I'm not fatalistic either. I do believe that your choices have a lot to do with your life, but I believe that a lot of them are internal too. It's how you look at the world. And I believe that that's what literature and fiction does, is it changes not necessarily your outward circumstances all the time, but it changes your internal interpretation of your outward circumstances, which in turn then actually changes your outward circumstances, but it's not a necessity. And so I think part of writing these books is that internal process of what does it mean to die? What happens to these characters? Do I have the same viewpoint as them? No. Why is that? Or yes. Why is that? And so it's trying to reconcile my life now as I live it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to just add, for the record, that like you totally stole a U2 line in that whole.
I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Exactly.
That's right.
No. I was going to point it out, but I didn't. But you did.
That's what sisters are for. So, okay, well, yeah, that's, I guess I feel the same way, and that's why I come back down to this whole notion of making my life count, right? Like, what can I do to make the world a better place? And
right, but I guess my only argument with that is some of us have agency and choice in that, and some people don't, right? Some people do not have. They're not in a situation where they have much agency over their lives. Does that mean that they can't come to grips, with who they are? I don't know. It's like more of a philosophical question, because everybody has some sort of choice in their life.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we all have some choice, but also I would say, yes, I'm coming from a very privileged position as an American citizen who, comes from kind of a middle-class background and has education and so can make, choices about, how I live my life in some ways. But I will say, for the record, I have spent a lot of time with very, very poor people in the world. I've spent time with very poor people in India and in Uzbekistan and in Mexico and in Kenya and in South Africa. And I have met tremendously amazing souls. There's this woman I know, Estee, in South Africa, who, on a social worker's salary, she started noticing all of these AIDS orphans, these child-headed households in her neighborhood. She lives in Mbali Township in South Africa, and she started noticing them. And on her social worker's salary, she was already living in a poor neighborhood, wasn't making a lot. I mean, a social worker, if you think a social worker makes very little in the US, I mean, in South Africa, these are poverty wages. She started feeding up to 70 orphans twice a day. Now, I'm sure she wasn't feeding them, organic meals with, lots of vegetable and meat. I mean, she was probably feeding them like a lot of ugali, which is like this corn maize, but she was doing it, and she was doing it. And so my point is like, even I've met people in extremely impoverished situations who are still doing exactly that. And I mean, I think she has the religious faith that, makes, that helps her, but not everyone that I've met has that. They just feel like they do what they can where they are, exactly where they are. And so, I think, yes, it's a privileged position, and yes, we all are, you know, are on relative scales in terms of the amount of agency we have, but still, no matter where you are, you can make some choices for, am I gonna, you know, am I gonna go out and rob people? Am I gonna,
Right.
you know, or am I gonna actually, you know, try and make my neighborhood a better place?
Yeah. Yeah. And what is it? I think also, what do we have a passion for? One, just doing the right thing, even if we don't particularly care emotionally about it, but also what are those emotional things that we do care about? I guess that's what I mean by what I'm looking for is what are those, you know, at one point in our lives, we were very in that religious world, which neither of us became comfortable with as we got older. But when you were in it, at least you had a very clear cut, like, we're saving people, you know, and it was a very like, yeah, you know, that thing to live for. But then what you don't, you come to wonder, what are you saving people from and what are you saving them to? But beyond that, it was very easy to have that thing beyond yourself, right?
Right, and once you
right.
lost that,
and there are many, many ways to do that. I mean, you can be involved politically. You can be involved in these social, you know, social justice things. You can be involved in the feeding of the poor and all of those and those emotional things. And I'm still looking for, you know, some people I know are passionate about childhood reading, right? That's their thing, right? And that's what they live for. Or they're passionate about the Humane Society. That's who they are. That's what they live for. And all of those are good things. So as I continue to search for that, I guess is what I mean.
Right. Well, you know, I think sometimes it's also enough to be raising
exactly.
3 kids with a lot of love and compassion and working with them. And sometimes that takes a lot.
Right. And also, I think, I mean, and our motto of sometimes it's good enough to be average, or, you know, or we should celebrate the average. Like, not all of us are going to be Joan of Arc, you know, and in fact, if you look back at history, some of those people that we celebrate for being who they are, you also realize how much devastation they caused for being who they were, right? There's always two sides of the story. And so, and sometimes it's good just to be average and live that way also.
You have a little 2-year-old next to you?
Yes, I have a 2-year-old. He's driving his mail truck across the desk.
I think your 2-year-old's going to make a cameo appearance in every Raw and Real episode.
Probably. Unless he's asleep, which he doesn't seem to want to do anymore.
All right. Well, I think we're kind of out of time. So that should be it for now. And we'll chat again next.
Yeah, I think that went pretty long. All right.
Yeah. All right. Oh, I will see you in St. Louis. So actually, next week we'll do our Raw and Real thing together.
Together in St. Louis. All right. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.